It's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives of families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In last week's blog, I showed you how to deal with a difficult intensive care team when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to share with you the 5 powerful things you need to do if the intensive care team is negative when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. If your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, chances are high that you are experiencing an overtly negative intensive care team. It's bad enough that you, your family, and your critically ill loved one are way outside of your comfort zone. And even worse, you and your family feel the stress, the fear, the frustrations, the anxiety, and the vulnerability when you're having a loved one critically ill in intensive care. There just isn't enough support for families of critically ill patients in intensive care. On top of that, intensive care teams tend to be very quick in painting doom and gloom pictures, and they're very quick in pointing out the negatives rather than the positives. And they do this for a number of reasons, whether it be to protect their professional reputation or whether it be to keep your expectations low and therefore make it easier for them to quote-unquote manage you and put you in your place. And I can assure you that after more than 15 years intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, I have seen my fair share of negative intensive care teams and their approaches in managing families of critically ill patients in intensive care in order to get what they want. Their approaches in managing families of critically ill patients in intensive care may start at being overtly negative and keeping your and your family's expectations and hopes low, but they don't stop there. What you and your family need in a situation where your critically ill loved one is either very unstable and in a very critical condition, or in a life-threatening situation, or your critically ill loved one may be in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, or your critically ill loved one may be having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury, or even worse, your loved one may be threatened with an NFR, not for resuscitation, or DNR, do not resuscitate order. Or your loved one may be in a situation where the intensive care team suggests a withdrawal of treatment or a limitation of treatment as being quote-unquote in the best interest of your critically ill loved one. Or your loved one may even be approaching their end of life in intensive care. It's often not negativity and the doom and gloom pictures painted by the all-powerful intensive care team. What you and your family need instead is to regain peace of mind, regain your power, regain your control, and regain influence fast. And if you are like 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care, you will never have peace of mind, control, power, and influence, because you just sit at the sidelines and watch things passively go by. You put all your trust and blind faith in the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team. But thankfully, you have come to the right place at IntensiveCareHotline.com. And I know that because if you are watching this or listening to this, that you don't belong to the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't have peace of mind, don't have control, don't have power, and don't have influence. I know that you've already sensed that what you see is not always what you get in intensive care. You have already decided that you will be able to overcome the negativity of the intensive care team and that you will be able to have peace of mind, control, power and influence no matter what. In order to help you on this journey, let's therefore look at the 5 powerful things you need to do if the intensive care team is negative when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Number 1. Do your own research instead of trusting the intensive care team blindly. Doing your own research pays dividends because you won't be held hostage by the intensive care team. You'd be surprised how much you can quickly learn about your critically ill loved one's situation and about intensive care if you start looking at the right resources at intensivecarehotline.com. Number 2. Look behind the scenes and discover what's really happening in intensive care. The moving parts in intensive care that only insiders know about have a massive impact on how the intensive care team positions your critically ill loved one's prognosis and diagnosis. The moving parts in intensive care, or what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care, are far more powerful than you have ever imagined. The fact of the matter is that if you don't get a quick and deep understanding of the things that are happening behind the scenes in intensive care, the intensive care team will stay negative, and they will keep you and your family at arm's length with their negative positioning that you can't challenge because you don't really understand what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. You may also want to check out our products page and our product section, where we have lots of resources about what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care. Let's move on to number 3. Start asking difficult questions and become a master of your own destiny. 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care are intimidated by the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team. Those families will never have peace of mind, control, power and influence, let alone be a master of their own destiny. The most powerful and influential families of critically ill patients in intensive care that I have seen in more than 15 years intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, where I also spent 5 years as a nurse unit manager in intensive care, have all but taken a very different approach. The very few powerful and influential families of critically ill patients in intensive care have all one thing in common. They start asking difficult questions. They look reality in the eye, and they have the unshakable belief that they can be a master of their own destiny, no matter the circumstances or the odds they and their critically ill loved one are facing. The good news is that those families will not let other people dictate to them what to believe or not to believe, or how they should conduct themselves. They are proactive, and they won't have anything stand in their way of success. Number 4. Don't take no for an answer and start proactively managing the intensive care team. If you are dealing with a negative intensive care team, you need to do the complete opposite of what the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care do, who have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence. Instead, you need to start questioning the very negativity of the intensive care team. You need to start proactively manage the intensive care team, and you need to stop taking no for an answer. You and your family need to quickly find some proven strategies in how you can start managing the intensive care team so that you will have peace of mind, control, power and influence fast, no matter what. Most families of critically ill patients in intensive care lack the tools and the belief system so that they can start managing the intensive care team before they start managing you. Here at intensivecarehotline.com, we have a wide array of tools and proven strategies in how you can start manage the intensive care team, counteract their negativity, and as a direct result, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly. Number 5. Change your body language and your tone of voice. If there is one secret to getting peace of mind, control, power and influence really quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, it's to change your body language and your tone of voice. So what do I mean by that? The 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have no peace of mind, no control, no power and no influence have it on display by their negative body language and by their weak and hesitant tone of voice. Instead of showing with your whole body language, instead of showing with your poor body language, poor posture and your weak and hesitant tone of voice that you have succumbed to the negativity of the intensive care team, you need to start taking control of both your body language and your tone of voice. Instead, uncross your arm, put out your shoulders, straighten your back, make strong eye contact, have a strong handshake and speak clearly and articulate, very clearly in no uncertain terms, what you want with a strong voice. Do just that and the intensive care team will notice that they are dealing with a powerful and influential family who is prepared to fight the negativity of the intensive care team. Try this at your own risk and you will see the results. So, how can you overcome the negativity of the intensive care team and quickly get peace of mind, control, power and influence while your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions, discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests, how to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 killer tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You'll get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again next week in another update. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section where we answer your questions, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Also check out our product section where you get more ebooks, videos and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting and email support. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.